Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to be showing you how you can set up Duplicati using Docker Compose and the whole reason for it. So Duplicati is just a tool for being able to back up your servers and your data files. Now keep in mind this isn't a full system-wide backup tool. This is a very good tool for backing up specific things that you're after. And in this video I'm going to be showing you how you can back up your Docker volumes and just your Docker configs and kind of my setup and how I go about backing up my servers. So when it comes to self-hosting, you are in control of your backups, right? So you either have backups or you don't. And if you don't, and if your system goes down, you are out of luck. And I've nearly been caught out a couple of times, and now I'm getting a bit into the self-hosting things, and I've got data I just can't lose. Well, I don't want to lose, so backups are important. So I'm going to show you the process that I go through and also give you all of the documentation, the Docker Compose and all of that stuff that you need to follow along as well. So let's jump into Duplicati and have a look around before we have a go at the install. So on my screen right now, this is Duplicati. I have it all up and running. This is all running as a Docker container, and this is installed on my Electron server. I have a video about that if you're keen to check it out. It's kind of just like a secondhand server that I set up, and it's my home server. And I have a backup all set up on here. So let's just have a quick look around the Duplicati environment, right? So it's very straightforward and its use case is very specific. It does backups, right? and restores as well. So what I've got here is I have an active backup. And if we have a drop down here, we can see that this runs every time at 1 o'clock, at 1 p.m. So it's very hands-off. I've told it where it needs to back up and it will just run every time at 1 p.m. And you can see that it does different versions. It shows me what versions they are and just, when it was last successful. So these are really good to check. So what we can do here is let's say if I needed to restore some files, I can click restore. And don't worry, I'm going to show you how you can configure the backup and everything like that. I'm just showing you what I've got set up at the moment. So let's say my Electron server went down, but I had the backups. What I could do is this is everything that's being backed up. So if I click into the home folder, this is being backed up right now. I have all my Docker files. If you've seen any of my other videos, I normally have like a Docker directory, and in there I have folders for all of the containers I'm running, and normally in there it has my Compose files as well. So there's a Techdox blog. Let's open that, and we can see that I have a Docker Compose YAML file there. But my Techdox blog is not comprised of volumes, bind mounts, right? Do I have bind mounts I can use as an example? One of these should be using bind mounts somewhere. Yeah, so here's the qBittorrent. This has a bind of the config folder, right? So I could just back that up, and that's the config for my qBittorrent. But my Techdox blog is actually using Docker volumes. So I'm also backing up the volumes as well, and I'll show you that now. So let's just minimize this. So I'm also backing up this var directory and the lib directory, and in there is the Docker folder, and in there is all my volumes. So there we go. We can see my Techdox blog volumes. So I'm also backing those up as well. So for whatever reason, if my entire system goes down, I've got my Docker Compose and everything that lives in those folders and any bind mounts, but I've also got all the volumes as well. And I can actually get into these volumes and see all the data in here, my SQL stuff. So all of this I can back up. Okay, so it's all here, and if I need it, I can restore it. So this is the whole point of this video, is I'm going to show you how you can get this set up, how you can back up your Docker volumes or whatever directories you want, all using Duplicati. So that's pretty much the overview. There's nothing really else to cover. Now, this isn't like a centralized tool. You can't set up Duplicati on one server and then point it to all your other servers. Duplicati needs to run on the server it's backing up. Okay, so I've got multiple servers. So I've got my Electron Cloud, and has Duplicati. I also have, let me show you, I have Alzim as well, which is my Zimmer board. And this also has its own sort of backup, right? And now we're also going to run this on my Raspberry Pi, and we're going to get, and that's called techdox.local. So we're going to install Duplicati on that and set up a backup on that to back up the Docker containers as well. Right, so I've just jumped into my Alzim server that already has Duplicati installed because it has the Compose file. Now here, it's very straightforward, right? But there's some key points that I want to raise here. So we're using the Linux server Docker image, which is fine. We're naming the container Duplicati, but the environment variables. So you see these are both 0. So what I'm actually using my sudo user, the root user of this has access to the root directory, right? As you can see here, the source. And then in there, it's giving me access to be able to choose from the whole system what I want to back up. Now, that might be too overprivileged for what you're wanting to do. And to be honest, if there's a lot of cons to that, I'm open to discussion and being told, hey, look, that's a really bad thing to do. But what this is giving me is full root view of my server, and I can choose what I want to back up, and I don't have to worry about any permission issues if I'm using my local Techdox user, which is the name, who doesn't have access to the var files where my Docker volumes live. So using the root user, which has the UID and the GID of 0, that gives me that access, and I'll show you that in a second. Otherwise, you can just use the UID and the GID of your current user if you don't need that level, that high level of backup. Let's just say you were just backing up maybe your home directory or something like that. So all of this information and the Docker Compose file is all going to be living in my book stack, and I'll have a breakdown of what these environment variables mean and alternatives that you can use. So if any of this is confusing, have a look in the book stack, jump into my Discord or ask below, and I'm sure I'm more than happy to help, and I'm sure others are as well. Now, time zone, this is pretty self-explanatory. Set your time zone. There are some command line arguments you could put in if you want. I don't have any I need to put in, but the documentation has some if you want to check those out. A link to the official documentation is in the description of this video. Now you can see here we do actually have some local binds. So the .config directory, and there's going to be a backups directory as well here, which lives in the folder where you run the Docker Compose. And source is asking, cool, what is the source? What location is that source that we're going to have access to? And you can see here, I just have the root path. That's just where that's been sourced, okay? And then that's going to be mounted to the source directory in the Duplicati container. And I'll show you all of this. If this is a bit confusing, it will all clear up in a second. We're going to access Duplicati on port 8200. And then it's going to restart unless stopped. So that means that Duplicati will continue to run even if our server restarts, unless we specifically stop it. So that's the Docker Compose file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to jump into my Raspberry Pi, and we're going to set it up there. So I'm on my Raspberry Pi right now. So what I can do is I can change directory, and I believe it's in documents, yep, containers, and it's the same sort of standard that I have. I kind of just have the folders. So we'll make a new directory. Right, and we'll call this Duplicati, change directory into there, and we're going to run this. We'll do a nano docker-compose.yaml, and we'll paste this in. So we can see here it's the exact same as what I just showed you before, so I'm not really going to go through it all again. I can save that and close it. Now, of course, you've got to make sure that you have Docker Compose and everything like that set up. If you don't have that set up, I have a link to a video where I kind of just help you get started with the whole self-hosting process and getting the tools that you need, and why I genuinely would suggest Linux over something like Windows when you're doing this stuff. So make sure to go check that out, and then you can come back and continue. So it's very straightforward. Now that we have the Docker Compose file, now since I am running this under sudo permissions, I'm going to run the deployment under sudo. So sudo docker compose up -d, and this will run. It's going to pull that Duplicati image. Depending on your internet speed, the time that this take could vary. Right, I was going to use my Raspberry Pi to demonstrate this, but it's just crashed. I think there's something wrong with it. It's the second time it's done this. I'm going to have to look at it. So I'm going to do this on my Alzim server. I've just removed Duplicati, and we're going to just reset it up. So let's just run that Docker Compose again. So Docker Compose up -d. You can see that we now have our network and our container up and running. Now, if I do an ls, you can see that we have the backups and the config folders that were defined in the compose file also created for us as well. So now that we have that all up and running, what we can do is we can go to that port, which is 8200. Also, if you're interested, this is why my Raspberry Pi just stopped working. Look at this. It's not happy. So yeah, anyway, let's go to port 8200 and set up Duplicati. So 8200. And here we get the first run setup. So it's going to ask us, if your machine is a multi-user environment, would you like to, set a password to prevent others from accessing this? No, my machine has only one single account, so I'm going to do that. And this is it. So what you were seeing before is pretty much the same thing. The only thing that we missed was how to add a backup. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click Add Backup, and we can configure a new backup, or we can import one from a file if we've got it. But I'm going to set up a new backup, and we'll hit Next, and we give it a bit of a name. So mine, I'm going to call it Awesome Docker. So this is the backup for my Docker Compose and volumes. Okay, so that's what that's for. I'm going to put in a passphrase here. So this is the passphrase that you will need to recover your backup. So do not lose this. So there we go. You can generate one as well if you want, but I'm just going to use that one for now. It does say it's weak, but hey. Now, the next step is your backup destination. So where are you backing up to, right? So there's quite a few things you can choose here. If you have a NAS, that's a really good option to do it. I'm actually in the process of building a NAS, so I'm not going to use that. But you've got a whole lot of standard protocols you can use, or you can use some cloud-based stuff as well. So your Azure, you've got Google Drive and all of that. I'm actually going to use mega.nz as my one for this example, and this will just back up all of my stuff to my mega directory, and that's where everything's going to live. So mega is just a cloud backup, and you can see here when I choose this option, it's just going to go, cool, inside of your drive, your mega share, where do you want this stuff to live? And I'll log into my mega and I'll show you. So this is my backup location, and if I go to backups, you see I've got Electron Backup and Alzum. I'm going to delete this one because it's now redundant. But if I go into there, this is how the Duplicati files live. And I'll show you why it's like this in a second. But this is essentially where everything's getting backed up. Let me delete this though. Right, so let's just remember this. So, I misspelled backups. That's where my Electron one's going. Okay, that's good to know. Anyway, so we're going to go into backups, okay? And then in there, I'm going to make a new folder called Alzum Backup. So just remember that. So here I'm going to have backups, right? And then here it's Alzum Backup. Now I need to put in the username and password of my mega.nz account. So I'm just going to quickly do that. And once you've got this in here, what you can do is you can then hit test connection. And that's going to test the connection to whatever provider you're using. And it's also going to make that folder path for you as well. So I'm going to test my connection now. So right now it's testing that connection. And it's saying here that, hey, the folder backups, Alzum Backup doesn't exist. Should we create it now? Yes, please create that. So it's going to go out and it's going to create that. So it's still testing. We'll just let it do its thing. And once it's done, we'll check and make sure it's done that. Cool, that's worked. Now this is the same for if you're using a NAS or anything like that. I'm just changing my backend type. Your backend type can be a NAS, local, wherever you want it. The process is the same. So if I go into Mega now, we can see we now have that Alzum Backup folder. That wasn't there before. And it's empty. So cool, we're going to back up to mega.nz. And if you are actually wanting to use mega.nz, I'll have a code below that you can check out if you are keen to sign up. I'm going to hit next. And now we can choose our source data. Now, there's a bit of a confusing point here. It's like, you look at this here, source data. Why is it empty? That's the thing I chose, right? No, it's actually not found there. It's found under computer. Now, computer, what you're seeing here, these files are the actual files that live in your container. This is the container directory right now. So don't back up this stuff. Come down and then you'll see source. Now, this is where all of your file that you chose is mounted in the container. So if I open this up, this is the Alzum server here now. So if I go home directory, we can see that here's my Techdox folder, right? So don't back up everything here because I had an issue where if you try back up everything, you get issues, the file backup doesn't work. And speaking to the Duplicati guys on their GitHub, they said that it's not a full system backup. You know, just, you know, it's specific for, you know, specific things. So I'm using Docker. So what do I want to back up here? I want to back up the Techdox directory. So if we open up this, we can see that we're going to back up, you know, Docker, Harbor, Nord, all of that stuff. Now, if I come into my Docker, I actually have a few things in here. I have Jellyfin for one. Now, Jellyfin has a bunch of movies and TV series. I don't want to back up all of those. That's just a lot of unnecessary stuff to back up. So I can untick that. I don't want that, right? And then we also have QBitTorrent. That might have some download stuff. I don't want to back all that up, okay? We'll leave that how it is. And everything else I would like to back up from that Docker directory. So we'll leave that ticked. All right. Now the Docker. Now we have like, if I go into Pilot, we have all the compose and the local binds, but I want the Docker volumes as well. So to make this easier to see, let's just kind of minimize that again. And if we come down to var, so let's look for var, right? And then we want lib, and then in here we'll have Docker. So open that up, and we only want one thing here. I just want the volumes, nothing more. So if I open up volumes, this is the Grafana volume, my link stack volume, and my Prometheus volume. I want that stuff backed up. So let's choose those. But I don't want anything else. There's nothing else I need. So we've got the Docker volumes, and we've got my home directory, Docker directory stuff as well, all my compose stuff. That's all I want from there. I don't want anything else. So once we've got that, all we have to do now is hit next. And we can choose when we want to run this. I want to run this every day. Run it every day at 1 o'clock, okay? And that's just going to run every single day. That's fine. That works for me. So I'm going to hit next. And now it says here that the remote volume size, you know how you send all those individual files in my cloud storage? So this is why it's happening. So it's saying the backups will be split into multiple files called volumes. Here you can set the maximum size of the individual volume files. I normally set mine at about 150. You can set up yours however you kind of like, but they're going to be in 150 megabyte chunks, okay? The backup retention, I like this. There's a few here, so you can do delete backups that are older than and give it a date, a month, a week, or whatever. Keep a specific number of backups, so hey, let's just do 3, everything else gets deleted. Or you can do a smart backup retention, and I like this one. So over time, backups will be deleted automatically. There will remain 1 backup for each of the last 7 days, each of the last 4 weeks, each of the last 12 months, and there will always be at least 1 remaining backup. So I like that structure. That works for me, so I'm going to choose that one. Now, if none of those work for you, you can just do a custom retention, and you can see the structure and how to do set it up here. But the smart backup retention works for me. So I'm going to choose that and hit save. And it's going to go, hey, look, your password was pretty crap. Do you want to use it? I'm going to use it. And now our backup is configured. So this will run at 1 o'clock. So what's the time now? It'll run in about an hour and a bit, but I can hit run now just to kick this off now. And it's going to start the backup. So it's going to verify it can talk to whatever backend provider we had set up. You can see it running up here, which is Mega. So it's going to make sure that my credentials are still valid and it can reach there. And now it's starting to back up. So it's going to count all the files, and it's going to show you how big it all works out to be. And it's going to start putting those up into your backend provider. So let's see if some stuff starts coming up here. If I give it a bit of a refresh, so nothing's showing up just yet, but that's fine. We'll just give it some time. Cool, so the backup is now just verifying those files. Let's just double check now. So there's a few more files in here now. So how big is that backup size? So Alzim, 537 megabytes. Not bad at all. Right, there we go. So we can see that the source backup is 1.3 gig, but the backup size that it's managed to do is 537.3 megabytes, which is awesome. And it took around 10 minutes for that backup to happen. So now let's do a bit of a situation here of, okay, server's died. We've got it back up and running with a fresh install of Ubuntu or whatever. We've installed Duplicati. We've imported our backup, but now we need to restore it. So I showed you this before, but let's just run it through again. If we expand it, then under operations, we've got restore files. If we click those, we can actually look at that backup now. And under home, there's my Techdox user and all of the home directory stuff that was in there. So more than just my Docker, actually, I kind of just backed up everything in that directory. And then, but under Docker, we have all of my files. Then if we look under Duplicati here, we can see that I have my Docker compose file, the backup configs, all of that good stuff, right? So that's all been backed up, awesome. Then under var, and then under lib and Docker, we should have our volumes been backed up as well. There we go. So I've also got those volumes as well. So now I can restore everything, all my Docker containers, I can restore them, my website or whatever I had backed up, get it all up and running again as if nothing happened, and I'm good to go. So that is setting up Duplicati, how you can restore files. If you want to use it for backing up Docker volumes, this is how you do it. But as you can see, it's good for just backing up home directories or whatever. Just again, don't try back up everything in your server, because they've said that it just causes issues. You get like when there's symbolic links and stuff set up, it kind of gets stuck in this loop. and it could say your backup size is like 200 terabytes when it's only like maybe a gig or something. So if you see that, you're probably backing up files that just doesn't work with Duplicati. Try keep it simple and to the point, and you should have no problems at all. Now, if you need any support, my Discord, jump in there. There's a fair few of us in there now. The YouTube comments, more than happy to help there. Thank you so much for all the support as well. All the information that you need to get all set up with this is in the description below. There's a Bookstack link, which is just to my documentation. It explains the compose file, how you can get it all up and running. And also, if you're keen for checking out my backend cloud service that I was using in this video today, which was mega.nz. They're not sponsored or anything, I just use them. I'll have a link below that you can use to sign up as well if you're keen. But yeah. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great one, and thanks for all the support. Bye-bye.